Thank you to our sponsors. Platinum sponsor, Gravity Forms. Build accessible, powerful WordPress forms with Gravity Forms. Flexible tools for creators, developers, and teams of all sizes. Platinum sponsor, WP Engine. WP Engine provides the most relied upon and trusted WordPress products for businesses, brands, and agencies of all sizes. Platinum sponsor, Woo. WooCommerce is the open source e-commerce platform built on WordPress, helping merchants worldwide sell, manage, and grow their businesses. Gold sponsors, Ally Web Accessibility. Equalize Digital, websites for everyone. GoDaddy, Green Geeks Web Hosting, Yoast. Silver sponsors, Aardvark, Code Geek, Your Vision, Our Talent, One Team, Kinetic Iris, Kinsta, Pressable, Second Melody. Bronze sponsors, Nine Planets Hosting, Engage, Draw Attention, Multidots, NerdPress, OSAM Studio, Oz EY, Australian Web Accessibility Initiative, Progress Planner, Quality Logic, Sharp, Simply Schedule Appointments, SiteGround, Stellar WP, Termageddon, Web Yes.
Welcome to WordPress Accessibility Day 2025. My name is Alexandra Blanco. Thank you for joining us for creating a hyper-accessible website for blind, low vision, and sighted users with Sandy Shin and Jeremy Perkins. Sandy is an accomplished marketing and communication professional with over 30 years of experience at organizations including UCLA, USC, IBM, and Disney. As the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for the Braille Institute of America, she led the launch of Atkinson Hyperlegible Typeface, a font specifically designed to support accessibility that has gained over 40 million global impressions. Jeremy works at the intersection of design, human behavior, and technology. He has spent 25 years designing and building websites and digital products that help people achieve their goals in higher education, nonprofit, and healthcare. His specialties include design systems and web accessibility, building flexible and extensible interfaces that are a delight to use by everyone. Please feel free to add your questions in the Zoom Q&A section and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Use the chat to connect with other attendees.
Hey everyone, welcome to our talk for WordPress Accessibility Day. It's called Creating a Hyper-Accessible Website for Blind, Low Vision, and Sighted Users. We're excited to talk today about a case study for a website that we worked on with the Braille Institute that serves people who have a disability and really need a hyper-accessible website. It was built on the WordPress platform, and we're going to talk through the case study and the discovery process and how we personalized the experience and a little on how it was developed in WordPress. So let's dive in. I'm Jeremy Perkins. I'm the Director of UX and Design at iFactory.
And I'm Sandy Shin. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communication at the Braille Institute.
So iFactory, quick note, we are a full-service agency that serves higher education primarily. We do everything from strategy and discovery to brand, UX, design, content, SEO, website development, and of course, a deep focus on web accessibility.
And Braille Institute, just to give you a little bit of background of who we are, our mission is to positively transform the lives of those with vision loss. We serve people of all ages, children, youth, adults, and all ranges of vision loss. So individuals with no vision who are completely blind to individuals with low vision who have some degree of vision still left. And we serve about 15,000 people a year. We were started, just to give you a little bit of background, we're a nonprofit who has been around for more than 105 years. We were started by a man, Bob Atkinson, who lost his vision as an adult due to a gunshot wound that left him completely blind. And he realized there was very little braille material available for people who were blind. And He was actually an entrepreneur and an accessibility advocate before those terms were even coined. He started the Universal Braille Press, which published materials out of his garage. And he worked with Congress to establish a library for the blind and print disabled to provide free Braille books. We, since then, have really expanded and developed a full range of services, including assistive technology training. We have library services, low vision consultation and rehabilitation, orientation and mobility that allow people to travel and move safely throughout their surroundings. And we have year-round classes and workshops. We have locations in Southern California, but we also have classes available to anybody virtually, and all of our services are completely free of charge. One of the other things we introduced about 5 years ago was a font called Atkinson Hyperlegible, named after our founder, and it was developed specifically for people with low vision. And what makes it unique is it focuses on letter differentiation. So we've got a couple of new versions, a monospaced version. We have an enhanced version called Atkinson Hyperlegible Next. The fonts are available to download for free on Google Fonts as well as our website. And it has really become, in our minds, the accessible font for people to use. And you can see down below, there's some examples of some of the characters and how they're differentiated from one another. A capital O looks very different from the 0, and a 1 and a capital I and a lowercase I and an L. They all look distinctly different, either because we put a tail or, a hat on the different letters to differentiate them from one another. So we, again, encourage anybody to use our Atkinson Hyperlegible font. So let's talk a little bit about why Braille Institute decided to do a complete redesign of our website rather than upgrading or enhancing the old site. And there were a lot of reasons to start fresh. First of all, our website was very bloated. We had about 700 pages. And when we looked at the analytics, we realized that about 4% of the pages that people viewed made up like 75% of the visits, which meant there were a lot of pages on our website that people were not viewing. Because of the number of pages we had, it was hard to navigate. The site was very dense. It wasn't particularly visitor friendly, especially for individuals who were blind or had low vision. It wasn't sticky or engaging. Visitors would come and sort of bounce off and leave. We had limited accessibility, really wasn't integrated into the site. And the branding was not reflective of sort of who we were as a brand. There was a lot of copy that was focused on talking about us as opposed to talking about the person coming to the site seeking help. And so we brought on iFactory to be our partner on this project because of their expertise in accessibility and their focus on the user experience. So let's talk a little bit about the user mindset. One of the first things we did was we really wanted to understand the user and really understand what they were thinking and feeling so we could create a web experience that met their needs. We talked to two key groups, individuals with no vision who were blind, as well as individuals who had low vision. And that group continues to be a growing segment. Just to share a little bit of a statistic with you as it relates to the low vision population, by 2050, we expect the number to double in terms of the number of people who are visually impaired or blind. And a majority of those people are going to be people who have low vision. We have aging baby boomers, people are living longer, there are a number of progressive eye diseases, and so this is a really important group. We want to make sure we're meeting who they are and sort of where they are when they come to our website. So, again, we focused on the experience of people coming to Braille Institute who are older adults, someone who has just started to lose their vision. And it's important to note that they don't have an understanding of what accessibility means or why it might be helpful to them. And honestly, they don't consider themselves as a person who is blind. They're feeling emotional about their diagnosis. They're scared of being helpless and unsure if life's going to ever be enjoyable again. And many have a hard time accepting help, right? They feel like they're going to be a burden to their loved ones. And so all of this was factored into how we think about the experience of our new website and how we're going to design this. So speaking to these individuals, these were some of the things they actually shared with us. And a lot of them really think about their symptom first. And so we wanted to focus in on how their experience have changed at the same time that their vision loss has. And so losing vision often means they're kind of using tools that aren't necessarily sort of traditional accessibility tools. Someone had shared, I take a photo on my phone and then I zoom in, right? So they're not using the zoom feature. They're doing things, roundabout ways of compensating for their change in their vision. So a lot of these things they shared really did help us factor into the user experience. One of the things I wanted to share with all of you is when someone says they're losing their vision or they have low vision, the vision loss experience is not the same. So for example, if you look here, somebody with diabetic retinopathy experiences spotty vision when they look at it, when they're looking out. Somebody with macular degeneration has lost their central field of vision. Someone with retinitis pigmentosa has lost their peripheral field of vision. So all of these things are really important when we take into account the user's mindset and the experience. And a solution that works great for one diagnosis may not be entirely helpful to somebody else with another diagnosis. So bringing things back to the UX perspective, we created some user stories to help understand the journey users go through as they explore Braille Institute. And we found the most important thing we could do is answer their many questions. So when they come to Braille Institute, they are wanting to understand what kind of support do we offer? Do we have things that are online or in person? Are the symptoms I'm experiencing typical of somebody who has macular degeneration? And so again, we wanted to ultimately help to reassure them that they were in the right place and that Braille Institute is here and available to help them. And so again, we really wanted to create a highly personalized, highly accessible website.
All right, thanks, Sandy. So now turning to the solution that we implemented for the site, one of the things that we had to think about right off the bat was what our major UX approach was going to be to the site to ensure that people with all of the uniqueness of their experience could understand that Braille Institute is for them and that we have offerings that will meet their needs. And the big decision we made up front is that we would create a personalized experience. And the two major ways that we chose to personalize the site are, first of all, make sure that somebody coming to the site for the first time can feel comfortable looking at the site if they have vision. And so reading and navigating can be as comfortable as possible so that so that they'll visit as many pages as possible and that they'll find the information that they came looking for. The second way is we wanted to find out some key traits about the user and then suggest offerings and stories of other users to them that would resonate and lead them to the services that they ultimately need. So I'm going to do a quick demo now of the live site and show how all of these things kind of work together to create this personalized experience, and then we'll come back and walk through some of the details of how that was implemented. So now I'm on the Braille Institute website. This is the top of the homepage. And what we're looking at here is a presentation that quickly onboards a user to make sure that they understand what Braille Institute is all about, and of course, allow them to quickly dive into the personalization. So first we see at the top a site header with the logo and the menu. And then directly to the right of that, the next thing somebody would encounter is a button that says text size and contrast. And if I click that, it opens up and reveals three checkboxes. There's a large text checkbox, a light mode checkbox, and a dark mode checkbox. So very simple, three quick options. It's not a big panel with lots of settings that you can explore. It's the three things that we deemed most users would benefit from. So I could click large text, and most of the smaller text on the page goes up to 150%. I can also choose dark mode if that's what's most comfortable for me, and it'll turn all of the background to black and all of the text to white and make the experience a lot more comfortable to look at. So that will allow me to get comfortable with the website and begin exploring in the way that suits me best. The next thing we would see at the top of the homepage is a headline that says, "We're so much more than Braille," and it explains in a little bit of copy that they're free life-changing services, classes, and more for people with low vision to no vision. And then right under that, we have a call to action link that says, "Take our quiz." So right away, we're guiding people into that three-step quiz that I mentioned to hopefully learn something about the user and then be able to suggest things that will be perfectly suited to them. So if I click that link, I'm going to proceed to the next page. And now I'm on a page that says "Take our quiz" as the page title. And then below that, it says one of three. And the first question is, what level of vision? It says select one, low vision or no vision. There are two radio buttons. I'm going to choose low vision and hit the next button that appears under that. Now I'm presented with question two of three, what age group? I can choose adult, youth, or child. Let's say I'm an adult. I click next. Now I'm on question three of three. How would you like to learn? And I can see there are three options: self-paced, online, or in person. And so depending on where I'm located, Braille Institute has centers in Southern California. Let's say that I'm not in Southern California and I can learn online through Microsoft Teams. Let me check online as my preferred way to learn. And now I click next. And now I'm presented with some results. It says your results, filtered recommendations just for you, adult with low vision online. So it repeats my answers back to me to ensure that they're correct and that it recognizes who I am. And then it says under that, based on your results, check out this featured offering. And I can see that there's a card with a green bar across the top with a title. It tells me it's understanding vision loss. It's a workshop. It's available online. And then I can scroll through a few more suggested offerings that match the three questions I answered. Under that, it says explore more offerings selected for you. And there's a button that says more offerings. I click that link, and now I'm taken to a big page that says all offerings, and it repeats filtered recommendations just for you, adult with low vision online. So I can see as I go from page to page, it's following me and reiterating that I have selected those three answers and that it's personalized for me, and everything on this page is going to reflect what I chose. And so underneath that, there's a set of topics that all is checked, but there's a few others, including art and music, critical thinking, health and wellness. And then there's one called life skills. And so let's say I'm interested in learning about life skills as an adult with low vision. And so I can click that. It gets selected and it slides me down to a list of results. I can see that same card style with the green bar across the top. Orientation and mobility consultation is the first one. Independent living skills is the next one. If I continue down farther, I can see accessible transportation options. It's a workshop that's available online. I can discover accessible transportation services to get around my city, county, or country. So let's say I'm interested in learning more about that. I can click that, and now it opens a new tab, and I'm taken to a whole page about that particular offering. So I can scroll down and see the workshop details. It costs nothing. It's free. I can see the ways to learn, that it's available online. and the dates and times that are available for that, where I can join through Teams or Zoom. And then if I scroll down, I can see more, what will I learn? What should I expect? And then after that, a registration form if I'm ready to sign up for it. So that's a quick demo of how, right from the beginning of the website, you're onboarded, made more comfortable, recognized as a person, and suggested some content to get started with on the website in a personalized way. So yeah, to reiterate, very simple options for choosing text and contrast. 3 quick questions, gathering some key traits about the user, and then some suggested personalized results. So now let's talk a little bit about some details in the design and content of what we just looked at. Every last part of the design and content had to be carefully considered to make sure that it was clearing the path for an easy, seamless user experience. First of all, setting a really good solid type scale that's hierarchical, headings, body text, call out text, captions, making sure that there's clear hierarchy and that text is a little larger than average is something that we've found to be helpful for a user, so that it's closer to what they would be comfortable looking at on a web page. When we implemented the large text feature, one of the decisions we made was that only the smaller heading sizes and body text would get bigger. The larger headings, heading level 1 and 2, were already large enough to be seen by nearly all users. So we didn't enlarge those, we only enlarged the smaller text, and we had to make sure that the hierarchy of the large and small text was still clear and you could tell what the information was conveying. Another feature of the design are these black guiding lines. So you may have noticed black lines surrounding cards, grouping things on the page, also horizontal black lines kind of defining the boundaries between sections of the page as you scroll down. High contrast, obviously black and white primarily, but these lines really serve another purpose for a certain kind of user. So it's been long known that people generally explore large web pages in kind of an F-shaped pattern. Heat maps have shown this in the past, where people tend to start in the upper left and they go down the left side of the page looking for the start of information of what's available, and then they'll look across from left to right to read that content and see what it's all about. And so that really becomes extremely important when we're talking about a low vision user who's using a screen magnifier to explore a page. So a screen magnifier is something that will enlarge a small slice of the entire page and only focus on that part, and then somebody can pan around in 4 directions to explore the web page. And so on this slide, the left-hand screenshot shows the Braille Institute homepage fully undimmed, where a typical sighted user could just take in all the information at a glance. The middle screenshot shows most of that screen dimmed, and all that's lit up is the upper left corner where all you can see is the logo. And that might be all that a person using a screen magnifier can see. And so they're moving that little rectangle of brightness around the screen to explore what's there. And so the direction they might explore is to first move to the right to see what's at the top of the page, and in which case they would explore and find the menu button next, and then they would find the text size and contrast button. So we're giving them things in the order of priority by moving from left to right. Then they might go back to the left-hand axis and go down, and the next thing they would discover is the main headline, "We're so much more than Braille." They might move to the right to read that headline, then back to the left, and then down again, in which case they'll find the next bit of text and the "Take Our Quiz" button. They might move to the right while they're reading that text and then discover that there's a video just to the right of that. And the play button for the video is positioned in the left-hand quadrant of the video so that you see that it's a video right away without having to go farther right. And then you move back to the left-hand axis and continue down. You'll encounter a black divider line, horizontal line, signaling that you've now entered a new section of the page. And that pattern repeats throughout the page. And so you don't have to see everything at once to know kind of where you are and what's grouped and associated with what. So that was a really important decision for the screen magnifier user. So next is we positioned images on the right-hand side of the offering cards, and that was really important in order to ensure that people who have trouble seeing photography and recognizing elements in photography due to the contrast could completely ignore the photos on the page. If they're traveling down the left-hand side of the page where all of the information starts, they can read the text and kind of ignore the images if they prefer. We also spent a lot of time writing descriptive text, making sure that all of the labels for links and buttons and form fields were very clear, unambiguous. For instance, what's the difference between a youth and a child? When you're answering that question, it's the age range that the person is within. And so we define that right up front so that it's clear what you're choosing and making sure it matches what you need. We spent a lot of time under the hood making sure that roles, labels, and regions were correct for assistive technology for screen reader users. So alt text for images, roles for buttons and links and videos and headings, labels for all of those elements, landmark regions for parts of the page. All of this aids a screen reader user to gather what's on the page and be able to quickly navigate among that information. So once we had created a set of pages that constituted a flow through the site, such as the demo I did a few minutes ago, we chose to put a prototype of this in front of users and to watch them explore it and observe how well it worked so that we could learn about the points of friction within the experience and make improvements before actually developing the entire site. So the typical process we would follow for usability testing is that we would make a prototype in design software such as Figma, where it's like an image of the design, and we would link screens together into a prototype, a clickable prototype. It's not an actual website, it's more a facsimile of the website, but it would give us something we could rapidly create and put in front of people to explore how well it works. Well, in this situation, since a lot of the users of Braille Institute are coming to the site using assistive technology or screen magnification, screen readers, other tools, that method for testing wasn't going to work because what a screen reader needs for someone who's blind and they're listening to the page is really a fully developed set of HTML for a web page that can identify content elements with roles and states and attributes so you know what content is there. And so the underlying material of a website, which is code, had to be present in our prototype for it to even work with that kind of user. And of course, it had to be usable with a keyboard and other expectations for this kind of user. And so what we chose to make with our prototype was the starting of the actual development of the website. We started building out in a rough state some of these key pages and actually just setting up the bones of the WordPress website. Now, a quick aside on how we developed the WordPress website, including this prototype. We had to make a decision on the tools that we were going to use in WordPress. And one of the decisions we made early on was to use the Divi theme, which comes with a visual builder, and to amend Divi, some of Divi's shortcomings when it comes to accessibility through, there's a special plugin called Divi Accessibility. And we wrote some custom JavaScript too to amend some of the downsides of some of the Divi content. And you might be wondering, well, why not just use WordPress blocks? You know, the WordPress accessibility team has been developing and putting a lot of effort into the block editor and full site editing and block theming, and it's really moving in a great direction. We're huge fans of that effort. We do lots of websites that way. There were a few considerations when we decided to use Divi to create the visual design of the site. One was that Braille Institute has a very small content editing team in-house that they could train and coordinate when using Divi. Also, none of those people at the time had a visual disability, so nobody needed the editor of the web content to be fully accessible. So we could depend on that as a constraint. Also, this would allow Braille Institute to create new layouts and new design patterns for the website over time without having to invest effort in development and writing more code. So they could create layouts, pages, designed patterns with ease using the visual builder. And finally, Braille Institute has a WordPress developer in-house on staff who knows Divi and can maintain the accessibility of the website that we created. So for all of those reasons, it made sense to use Divi as the theme. We also used a couple of other plugins to supplement that for the front end of the website. Gravity Forms is well known for having highly accessible forms. We used that. We styled them using Divi. And G-Translate provides the language translation for the website. It's available in about a half dozen different languages, and it works well in that it changes the lang attribute on the HTML tag to the actual language that the page is translated into, so that a screen reader can hear all of the text pronounced properly in that language. So for the usability testing, we did in-person moderated testing for most of the users. There were 15 users in three groups, a low vision set of users of five blind users, and then five sighted users. And they used a variety of assistive technologies. We had JAWS available, NVDA, both screen readers, as well as Zoom text for screen magnification. We went on site in Braille Institute's Los Angeles Center, and we had a room set up with a large monitors and a large format keyboard, as well as a mouse available, in addition to those software solutions that I mentioned a minute ago. And so we sat alongside the user and had them click through and try to complete a series of tasks on the prototype, and we recorded and observed what they were doing so that we could collate our findings and make changes to the design. And so what we learned, there's a few things that we altered in the design, which you will see on the live site. The first thing is that the offering cards that we had originally had this eyebrow text above at the top in that green bar in the offering card. So it used to say things like new, in person, online, in the green bar above the heading for the card. And it was kind of all grouped together using the black lines to associate that content together as one offering. Well, the difficulty with that is that without the styles available here, if you're just listening to the web page, you might hear a series of things that are more like raw content. And so this is what the page would look like without any style sheet associated with it. And so you can see that the new in-person and online text doesn't necessarily look associated with what's below it. It could look just as associated with what's above. And so that association of the black line through the style sheet, when it's not available for some users who are, again, listening to the page or are low vision and can't see the design as well, made it more difficult. And so the change that we made was to move the eyebrow text below the heading and move the heading up into the green bar so that the heading, which is the title, precedes all of the content that it's the title for, and that made a big difference. Another thing we did is that the main menu panel has a series of toggle buttons for each menu item that expands the second level navigation. And those were off to the right side within the menu panel. And we were finding users weren't always discovering those arrows off to the right, and they were missing that important action for navigating. So what we did was we moved the arrows back to the left side, to the left of the menu link that it refers to. And the order is still going to be, when you're encountering the page from top to bottom, the main menu parent link followed by the arrow. So it will go to the link first and then to the left to the arrow, so that that hierarchy is still clear. But this made a big difference for users traveling down the left side of the page. Also, icons were present in the design, and we were finding that the way these were implemented, it would create a pause in a screen reader. So somebody would advance to the next element on the page and hear nothing. And that was really, that minor stumble was tripping up a lot of people, and they were confused. And so we realized we don't really need these icons. We have text labels associated with them already, so we just got rid of the icon fonts and that removed that hurdle. We added more descriptive text. So the main call to action on the homepage used to say get started, which is a little ambiguous. Like, what will I get if I click get started? What am I starting? So we changed it to say take our quiz, and we added some text above it that says get personalized recommendations. So you know what you're going to find if you click that link. And finally, perhaps the largest change was when you are on the All Offerings page, the topic selection is a series of radio buttons, and we had styled them to look like radio buttons, and they interacted with them just like radio buttons. And the way it worked was you would change the radio button to another option, and you would hear in a screen reader something like 13 offerings below, and then you would have to move through the rest of the list and down the page and then find the 13 results further down the page. This was proving to be a lot of work for some users. They didn't quite know where to go or where the content was located or what was happening. And so what we changed it to was we made the radio buttons behave a little more like regular buttons. So they look like separate clickable objects, not a form field with one setting. And also you can individually focus on each one of these like a regular button and hit enter or spacebar on the keyboard. And when you do that, you make that selection, it will slide you down and move focus to the start of the results list. So it skips over all the intermediate content, takes you right to the information that you had just made a selection to see. So those were some of the things we did and some of the things we learned, and the site has been live for about a year now, and we've seen some positive results, and Sandy is going to tell us about some of those.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, given all of the things that were designed into this website, you can see here our first 12 months of the website have been extremely positive. The key headline is we're seeing more people coming to the website. Traffic is up 17%. We're seeing more new people coming to our website. That's up about 7%. They're actually viewing more content. So more page views, they're spending more time on our site, and they're doing more things. They're taking action. They're more engaged. That's up 117%. And we're sharing some of the key things people are doing on our website. They're downloading our font. They're contacting us. They're signing up for workshops. They're taking our quiz. So really, all of the things we intended the website to do, it is doing and meeting those needs. And we included a customer satisfaction survey on the website as well. And we have been receiving really positive feedback. People are commenting on how accessible the website is. And so again, really strong satisfaction with their experience on our website.
Yeah, so with that story, we wanted to leave you with a few takeaways on how if you manage a website, you either manage a site, develop a site, design sites for WordPress, how you can be more hyper accessible, which is really going beyond requirements and compliance, and to make something supremely easy to use for people. First thing we would recommend is make sure to talk with users and understand how they think about themselves and what they know. Not everyone is up to speed on what accessibility is and all the technologies and the techniques and how to go quickly. A lot of the users for Braille Institute felt like they were new to these concepts and the smallest thing could trip them up. So make sure you understand what they know and how they think about the content. Also, consider the experience across pages, not just an individual page of content leading you to a solution or an answer, but going through a journey on a website and making sure that you are managing the amount of information that someone's experiencing and creating continuity and guiding them to the right ultimate endpoint on their visit. Also, make sure that every design and content detail works to ease the experience. small things that web designers take for granted, like icons and, staggered layouts and other things such as that might be major barriers to somebody that's not using or experiencing the site in the same way as the rest of us do. And really taking care to design and write words that ease that experience is very important. Be prepared to change course when testing. You may find that it's not just validating all of your assumptions, but it's showing you critical information that will help you make the experience better, and you may have to make significant changes. And then finally, beware of common UI conventions, such as icons and irregular layouts. As I mentioned, there are things that are like shorthand that we all take for granted and we use freely when we're creating web experiences. You can certainly have like a really visually stunning website, but also have a layer of experience that accommodates people who are more comfortable experiencing it differently. And just keep that in mind that the shorthand and the conventions that you're reaching for might not work well for everyone. So that's all we have today. And it was exciting to share what we've learned with you, and we're looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Alexandra. I'll be emceeing this Q&A session. First of all, thank you, Jeremy and Sandy. This is so exciting. I was seeing the results and I was like, wow, it's incredible how much impact and yeah, the effort that you all do can have on people. And I'm also loving everyone in the chat interacting. I loved that when Divi was mentioned, everyone just started losing their minds and bringing up different opinions, but we do have a couple of questions. The first one is from Nassim, and they ask, what are some best practices for color contrast and text scaling that work well for users with low vision, but don't break the layout for sighted users?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to color contrast, obviously there's certain contrast ratios that we need to meet. And so, getting it above 4.5 to 1 for normal text will ensure that the most people can read that text comfortably. And so above that level, there's quite a range of color hues that you can use to create a visually rich and engaging website. And so we're really committed to meeting contrast ratios. Um, in the case of Braille Institute, it was AAA conformant through the 7-to-1 ratio with all the black and white. As far as text scaling goes, this is where it gets a little tricky. So the way we implemented the large text setting was uh, custom through JavaScript. So we literally just change a class that's on the body tag, I believe, that then causes the style sheet to change all of the smaller text to be larger. And so we had to be cognizant of the fact that certain multi-column layouts, as the text gets bigger, making sure that it doesn't break the layout. So because we weren't scaling up very large words like large headings, it was unlikely that a single word would suddenly stop fitting within its container. And then also on this website, we didn't use a lot of columns. We used like 2-column layouts in a lot of places, very seldom 3-column layouts. So there was a lot of room for that text to grow as it got larger. And so if you're implementing a custom text scaler like we did, testing out all screen sizes, all font sizes to make sure that nothing is broken. So that's what I would add around that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. We do have a couple of questions, so I'm trying to get to most of them. Next one is from Luna, and the question is, what was the cost and scale of remediating this accessibility issues for your website?
So I'm not entirely sure the scope of that question, but when it comes to remediating the accessibility issues, there was the accessibility shortcomings in Divi that we had to remediate, which was a pretty minor amount of work compared to all of the other research and design and testing. There were pretty straightforward solutions to a lot of those issues, including avoiding certain elements within the Divi builder that just weren't accessible and sticking to other ones. So there was that. And then there was the remediating the accessibility issues after testing that we found. And those things within the design, I think, were, I would say, not earth-shattering. Like moving a text field from being above to below a heading was a fairly simple design change that we were able to make. Oftentimes we found in usability testing that a lot of what people respond to are things like wording and order of things on a page, like to understand what something means, and less of a complete negative reaction to a large decision that requires ripping everything up and starting over. So it might there might be some things that are a small lift to fix, but make a major difference for users.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important to test the product after it's done, see what we can improve as well. Next question is from Anonymous, and they wanted to know if there are any considerations to different keyboards that blind might use that when designing we need to know.
Different keyboards, yeah. Sandy, do
Yeah.
you have anything to say about large format keyboards and other types of devices?
Yeah, I mean, we did test when we did the usability testing with large format keyboards. So those are where the actual keys are in like different colors for contrast. The lettering itself are larger. Individuals who use refreshable braillers, they're using their own brailing type of a keyboard. So those were some of the things we did include in the usability testing. I'm not sure if there's something more specific that's being asked, but those were some of the key things. And um, we teach classes for students to use certain types of keyboards as well, so they become familiar with that.
Thank you. Next two questions I'm going to try to put together because they have to do with DV. Taco says, Equalize Digital recently researched the state of accessibility for page builders. Divi ranks very poorly. With this information, would you consider picking another page builder in a future rebuild of the website? And added to that, James asks, for people not using Divi, do you have any tips for things to look out for in the WordPress site editor that aren't natively accessible yet, and workarounds for those things?
Yeah, so the question around choosing a page builder or not is probably the most important thing that we stress when beginning a new project. Like this is a major decision, and certain clients don't quite understand, and others kind of get it, and some have an opinion, and some are like, whatever you recommend is fine. So, because it does result in among other things, saving all of your content in a specific format. And if you decide to migrate out in the future to another theme or another builder, it can be a lot of work. And then, of course, like the upgrade roadmap for the theme itself could introduce new features and other things that are not accessible. And so you're really weighing lots of options when you're choosing which technology. And so, yes, every time we encounter a new website, we're like, here are the pros and cons of all these factors for each technology. So yes. And then as far as the native block editor and full site editing, I don't have a specific example in mind. One thing we found is that um, so two of the difficulties that come up with the block editor are how to build things that are more complex in the block editor. Do you stick with, like for an example, there's no like for an accordion block or a tab block. If you were to try to assemble that out of a series of nested groups with buttons and like tell the client just repeat, copy and paste this one thing in the list view of your page to add new tabs or accordions, that's often brittle and can break easily. And then you've just broken the accessibility of your site because a person didn't understand, like it didn't do things in the right step. So do you create a custom block? Do you, like there's a number of approaches you can take there. And that's where we find the most challenge comes in.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights, Jeremy, and for answering those questions. Again, thank you so much for everyone who joined this session. Make sure to check out our speakers' websites and social media on the WordPress Accessibility Day site. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to leave you with our closing statement. Thank you for attending the session with Sandy and Jeremy. You can continue the conversation in the chat or on social media using hashtag WPA11YDay and WPAD2025. We would also appreciate it if you go to 2025.wpaccessibility.day/feedback to provide anonymous feedback for our speakers on their presentation. You can also enter to win a t-shirt while you're there. Stay tuned for audio accessibility in WordPress coming up next with Bernd Schmidt at 20 UTC. And while you're waiting, don't forget to visit our sponsors pages to grab virtual swag and enter for a chance to gain great prizes. Thank you so much and see you next session. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.